confirmed number of coronavirus cases in Los Angeles County comes to 1,085,044. The confirmed number of deaths reaches 15,592. Here in Torrance, the total number of confirmed cases is 5,883, with total confirmed deaths at 134. We expect the numbers to change as the county updates its last 24-hour operating period. Welcome to COVID-19 Today. I'm Christine Lee. It's 4 p.m. on Wednesday, January 27th. President Joe Biden announced this week that his administration is working on purchasing an additional 200 million doses of COVID-19 vaccines, bringing the total to 600 million doses for the U.S. The goal is to have enough vaccines to protect all American adults by the end of summer. The president also announced steps to improve communication and increase vaccine deliveries to states by 16% over the next 3 weeks. Biden calls this push a wartime effort and says the plan is to buy an extra 100 million doses each from Moderna and Pfizer. The Trump administration had previously secured contracts with the two companies for 400 million doses. But vaccine shortages have been so severe that some sites across the country have had to cancel tens of thousands of appointments. Biden called this unacceptable and said lives are at stake. More vaccines could become available if the single-dose option from Johnson & Johnson gets granted the emergency authorization it needs in the coming weeks. Some good news from one of the vaccine makers. Pfizer says they'll be able to deliver 200 million doses of its vaccine 2 months sooner than previously expected. The company's CEO says they're well ahead of their July 31st deadline due to a change in the vaccine's label that allows healthcare providers to extract an additional dose from each vial. Each vial now can officially provide 6 doses. New York-based Pfizer developed the drug with German company BioNTech and expect to supply the U.S. with the additional vaccines by the end of May. The companies plan to produce 2 billion doses this year, a 50% increase from last year's estimates. They're also developing booster shots that can protect people from various mutations of the coronavirus. This news follows Moderna's announcement that it is also working on a similar boost shot. The White House COVID-19 response team held its first press briefing of the Biden administration today. And among those in attendance was the president's chief medical advisor, Dr. Anthony Fauci. He says scientists are working on booster shots for the existing vaccines intended to target the new variants. The new director of the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, Dr. Rochelle Walensky, adds that the new strain of COVID-19 first detected in the United Kingdom has now been found in 26 states, and the U.S. has not yet discovered the variant initially identified in South Africa. This is the first of regular briefings expected by the team of experts. Scientists and federal health officials working on the coronavirus response expect to update the public several times a week. 1 year and 1 day has passed since LA County reported its first case of COVID-19. Public health officials say since then, more than 1 million cases have been confirmed and almost 16,000 people have died. January has been the deadliest month in the pandemic, and LA residents are asked to help stop the spread by avoiding crowds, staying home, and wearing face coverings. The state lifted the regional stay-at-home order this week, allowing all counties to go back to the blueprint for a safer economy's color-coded tiers. LA has always been in the most widespread or purple tier. While there's a lot we still can't do, going back to this tier system does allow many businesses, such as hair and nail salons, to reopen, and breweries and restaurants to resume outdoor dining services in the coming days. Public health officials say it is crucial that businesses comply with public health protocols. Compliance teams have been circulating the county, issuing citations to those who have not been following the guidelines. LA County confirmed 291 new deaths and 5,927 new cases of COVID-19 during its most recent 24-hour period. The county's public health director, Dr. Barbara Ferrer, says virus transmission remains very high, and case counts will rise again if we are not careful. She urges Angelenos to stay vigilant and visit the county's COVID-19 vaccine website, vaccinatelacounty.com, to stay on top of eligibility updates and book appointments. As more contagious strains of the coronavirus spread throughout the U.S., some health experts say wearing 2 masks could help us double down on protection. White House advisor Dr. Anthony Fauci says 2 masks are better than 1 because it increases the prevention of droplets and the virus from reaching a person's mouth and nose. While N95 masks are ideal, they're still on short supply and should be reserved for healthcare workers. Instead, health experts say try double layering with a surgical mask closest to your face and a cloth mask on top of it. This should provide maximum protection, with the surgical mask acting as a filter and the cloth mask providing an extra filtering layer and helping to improve the fit. The CDC says surgical masks should not be confused with disposable face masks. They also warn about fraudulent surgical masks that are being sold online. The CDC offers a number of resources and could answer many questions you may have about mask wearing in general. You can go to cdc.gov/coronavirus and click on Tips on Wearing a Mask. Farm workers in Central California started receiving COVID-19 vaccines this week. These essential workers are among the most vulnerable populations because they work in close proximity to each other and often live in multi-generational households. The vaccination rollout in West Fresno County allows up to 3,000 agriculture workers to get vaccinated this week. Officials say that's just a small fraction of the 70,000 to 90,000 people who work in the fields. Unfortunately, there aren't enough vaccine doses to cover all of these employees at this time. Fresno County officials say they're able to give up to 50,000 shots a week, but they received only 8,000 doses in its latest shipment from the state. Fresno County has more than 1.65 million acres of farmland. It continues to be one of the top producing agricultural counties in the nation, producing more than 300 commercial crops worth more than $7.8 billion in 2018. Equity and inclusion have been big priorities for the Biden administration, especially when it comes to communications about COVID-19. This week, the White House announced that all of its briefings will have American Sign Language interpretation. And 1 week ago, whitehouse.gov relaunched a Spanish version of its website, which has been unavailable since 2017. Spanish speakers can now read the website's content, including the COVID-19 section, in Spanish. According to language learning company Babbel, more than 43 million people in the U.S. speak Spanish as their first language. That's about 13% of the entire population. Additionally, 12 million Americans are bilingual Spanish speakers. This makes the U.S. the second largest Spanish-speaking country in the world after Mexico. A study conducted by global business news site Quartz predicts that the U.S. could become the largest Spanish-speaking country by 2050. California has the second highest concentration of Spanish speakers in the U.S. More than 28% of the state's population, that's roughly 9.6 million Californians, speak Spanish as their primary language. Speaking of inclusion, the Biden administration is picking up efforts to make abolitionist Harriet Tubman the new face of the $20 bill. Efforts to replace the bill, which currently features President Andrew Jackson, began in April of 2016. The new design was supposed to be unveiled in 2020, but it never happened and was pushed back to a later date during the Trump administration. Now it's back on the priority list, with Press Secretary Jen Psaki saying it's important that our money reflects the history and diversity of our country. She adds that they're exploring ways to speed up this effort so that Tubman's image could grace the new $20 note sooner than later. Harriet Tubman escaped slavery and helped more than 300 others to find their freedom. AMC Theaters raised a lot of money in about a month to avoid bankruptcy. The U.S. movie theater chain announced this week that it raised $917 million since mid-December, enough to make it through the winter. This amount includes more than $400 million each in loans and share sales. AMC already gathered more than $1 billion earlier last year from mostly debt and equity. The latest news sent stock shares soaring by up to 39% on the New York Stock Exchange. AMC CEO Adam Aron says this means that any talk of an imminent bankruptcy for the company is completely off the table. AMC is the world's largest theater operator with about 1,000 venues and 10,700 screens worldwide. It kept many of its theaters open in the U.S. during the pandemic in places where they were allowed to do so, despite a drop in ticket sales. The company hasn't shared its full financial results from 2020 yet, but it did post a net loss of $3.6 billion in the first 9 months of the year. The beach water use advisory in LA County has been extended due to the recent rainfall. The LA County Health Officer says bacteria, chemicals, and other public health hazards from city streets and mountain areas are likely to contaminate ocean waters. Those who enter the water at and around certain creeks, rivers, and storm drains could get sick. The advisory will be in effect until at least 11:45 p.m. tonight. The advisory may get extended again depending on further rainfall. To get the latest information on beach conditions, you can call the county's beach closure hotline at 1-800-525-5662 or log on to publichealth.lacounty.gov/beach. The Torrance City Council met last night to conduct city business. After a lengthy debate, council members upheld the appeal of the Planning Commission and denied the development plan to allow construction of a new 2-story single-family residence located within the Hillside Overland District. A resolution will return at a later date. The City Council adopted a resolution to authorize funding for a sidewalk repair project for handicap accessibility. It also reviewed the proposed state housing legislation and directed staff to bring back 7 separate resolutions stating city positions with signature blocks for the entire mayor and council to sign with a letter of opposition to the governor on the housing budget. They will continue watching bills AB 71 and SB 15. Council members approved amendments for construction support services for the Torrance Transit Park and Ride Regional Terminal, and they'll also plan to have a COVID-19 memorial resolution for their next council meeting, which has been set for February 9th. Many more agenda items were discussed. You can watch replays of the council meeting right here on Torrance City Cable and online. Well, before we go, at the end of each program, we like to share stories from our community, feel-good pictures, images, and videos that remind us of how resilient our community is and how Torrance truly cares. The South Bay Jewish Community Center and the Academy of the Arts Elementary School got together to spread some love to our frontline workers. They reached out to neighboring businesses who sponsored merchandise to give to our local heroes. The Academy students made hundreds of thank you cards and delivered care packages to Torrance Memorial and Providence Little Company of Mary. They say some frontline workers happily took a short break to come out and thank the community members for thinking of them during this challenging time. What a thoughtful way to get together as a community and give to those who truly deserve it. Now, if you have a great story to share, email us at covid19today@torranceca.gov. We'd love to hear from you. Well, that's our update for COVID-19 today. Be sure to tune in tomorrow as Ben McCain brings you the latest. Be safe, stay healthy, and thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time.